On today's show, what wings should the Dallas Mavericks target in free agency and in trades this offseason? They have to fix their defense. This is one of the reasons. This is one of the ways they can do it. Talk about that and more on today's Locked On Mavs.
I'm Luka Doncic, and this is Locked On Mavericks podcast.
Mavericks, NBA champions. Bang! It's good, and the Mavericks have won the game.
If you don't believe, you shouldn't be here.
Loyalty never fades away.
And welcome. You are locked on to the Dallas Mavericks. My name is Nick Angstadt, media member and NBA channel manager for the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And may the 4th be with you.
You would.
Thanks for being part of the show, making Locked On Mavs your first listen every day. Subscribe or follow for free wherever you get your podcasts. Listen every day. It helps grow the show more than you know. And comment anything below. Let us know in the comment section. Who do you want the Mavericks to target? Which wing do you want them to target in the offseason? Let us know. Also, if you want to subscribe to our subtext, to text us, get text alerts from us, and participate in our mailbag that we're doing tomorrow. So send in your questions about the draft. We're only doing draft questions tomorrow. So send them in to the subtext, the link in the description below or on wherever you're listening to this. So go check it out. And then, thanks for subscribing to our subtext. Joining me, as always, my co-host, writer, contributor at Mavs.com. The wing wonder, the one more thing king. What you got for me, Isaac Harris?
All right, since it's May the 4th, right now, out of the 9 Star Wars movies that we recognize, which one is your favorite?
Which one is my favorite?
Yep.
It's probably Return of the Jedi or Empire Strikes Back.
I would say Empire Strikes Back. There you go. That's the one right there. Or I could do the one with Jar Jar Binks. Hot take.
Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones. He's in
Hot
both.
take. Jar Jar gets more hate than what he deserves.
Ahmed Best is making his return.
Is he?
The actor that played him? Yeah, he was in an episode of The Mandalorian in season 3. I won't spoil it, but the actor that played Jar Jar was in a different role. I won't say Jar Jar was in season 3 of Mandalorian.
I was gonna say I'm kind of out on that show right now, but that would bring me back in.
I enjoyed season 3 thoroughly. On today's show, we're getting into wing targets. We'll talk about the most likely wings. We'll talk about the wings that we think the Mavericks will actually get or could get in free agency or in trades this offseason. We'll talk about ones that we think are kind of like maybe could happen if some crazy trade happens. And then we'll talk about some dream targets later on.
What about X-Wings?
X-Wings, Y-Wings, A-Wings, B-Wings, all the wings. We'll talk about.
I'm done with it. All right. I'm done.
We'll talk about today. Let's start here. Wing after center is probably the most important thing for the Mavericks because at least they have some wings.
After center? I think it's ahead.
Isaac thinks it's ahead of center.
Yeah.
But I think they have to address that center position first because I think it's just been such a bad position for so long for the Mavericks that they have to address that, especially for a regular season, just for wins. Like they need to just get regular season wins. And I think a center will help them do that. Wings then are the next most. Then some, like Isaac Harris, would say that is more important to get wings. And they need probably one more wing that can play like 40 minutes in a playoff game, right? Isaac says 2. He's holding up 2. So maybe 2. But they need at least one more is my point. And so now you start looking, okay, who are some guys that fit that category that the Mavericks could possibly get? So let's start with our ones that are most likely and best fits. We each came up with our own list and we kind of split them into these 3 or 4 categories. And so we'll just go through and talk about which ones are likely, how they get them, and all that.
Yeah, and some of these, when I made this list, I landed on 23 different names that I could see a world in which they get traded. So, for instance, I don't have, I guess Giannis is considered big, but like I don't have Jason Tatum as, a dream candidate. He's not coming to Dallas. So some of these are names we've heard a lot. A few of these names, I'm like, it wouldn't shock me if they got traded this offseason. So if we look at the first category, like you said, of the most likely, like wings, because you got to consider everything that Dallas has to offer, which, some of that depends on draft lottery night, where the, draft pick lands, if they get to keep it.
Oh, boy.
And then you look at some of the other trade assets right now. They got a couple of kind of virtually expiring contracts. in a way. They have, Jaden Hardy, Josh Green. They have the contract of Tim Hardaway Jr., which Tim Cato just, was writing about the other day and threw in there about how it has some positive value around the league. So anyway, y'all know the Mavericks trade assets. A couple realistic names. I put 9 names in this category. How many names do you have?
Yeah, I have about 9 in the realistic.
Do you want me to just list them off for you, or do you want me to just throw out a couple?
Well, give me the 2 that you're most excited about.
I think for Dallas, I think I would be calling up the Clippers and saying, all right, you have a ton of money on your books. Yeah. Like it's insane how much money they have. And, they're already out of playoffs again. Are you going to bring back all the older vets? Because that's, like Dallas could use vets and they can use wings. And I would be saying, all right, Marcus Morris, Nick Batum. Can we get one of those guys for a cheap price? That's one of my first calls. I should say this, not one of my first calls, because there are some dream targets that we'll talk about here in a little bit. But as far as most likely, both those guys will be on expiring contracts next year. They're vets. I could see the Clippers moving either one of those dudes. And if I'm Dallas, I would more than happily take one of those guys.
Yeah, those guys would bring a lot. I don't have Marcus Morris as a one that I'm looking at, because I think you have to defend, and he started getting played out of that series this year, and I think they need to bring in somebody that can defend. So Nick Batum definitely on my list. He would be a vet. He could come in, defend, hit the 3. Robert Covington I kind of have, because I think he's even more gettable. He got played out in the regular season. He was out of Ty Lue's rotation, so that one I'm looking at a little more. But $11 million for him, I don't know how they're getting to that number, what they could send. They don't have second, so it makes some of these trades a little bit more difficult. Those guys could bring something for sure. So those are some targets. One that we've talked about recently, and it's making the rounds today, is Dillon Brooks. We talked about Dillon Brooks a lot the last couple of weeks. He's not going back to the Grizzlies under any circumstance, like no circumstance, according to Shams Charania. He's an unrestricted free agent. Like that's one of the most likely ones to me. And 2 weeks ago, and last week I called it. I said the Mavericks will sign Dillon Brooks. Like I think it will happen, just because it seems
you are
like
willing it into existence. Nick has always wanted this to happen.
I was against it 2 weeks ago. I think I'm still against it. But if you're getting a talent that you couldn't get otherwise, the same way you got Kyrie Irving, if you're going to get a talent you couldn't get otherwise, he's the one. He's the quote unquote damaged goods, the asset that's affordable for you that you could potentially sign. Just outright, not have to lose any assets for him. So he's the one that stands out to me the most, which is I don't think the Mavericks should do it because of their culture. I don't think the Mavericks culture can handle it. I do think the Mavericks think their culture can handle it and can bring him in and bring him into the fold. And maybe his ego took a hit with this whole thing this offseason. Maybe he'll be a changed player and motivated and all that. Maybe he poked one too many bears and then the bear bit back. I don't know. Did we find out if the U.S. has more bears per capita than Slovenia? It does. That's right. It does. I don't care if they're black bears, brown bears, anything. U.S. has more bears per capita than Slovenia.
I'll give you. I've been pretty open about. Hey, I would make the call to Dillon Brooks' agent, see what it costs. I'll give you another free agent, Matisse Thybulle.
Yes.
I think Dallas has been interested in the past. There's a whole restricted stuff with them. But.
He's restricted, but his cap hold is like 13 million. So if the Blazers want to do anything in the offseason, they'll decline that cap hold and make him not restricted, basically, right? Like, or offer some kind of qualifying offer to him to get that out of the way early. So we'll know pretty early, I think, in free agency, or before free agency, even if Tybulle's going to be readily available, or if the Blazers are going to bring him back.
Yeah. And I'll give you another. I have a few more on my list on this, but one that I do think could be available this offseason, that he's my nemesis, but I think he would fit in Dallas, is Kyle Anderson.
Yeah. That's a good one.
Yeah. They got it. They're going to try to bring back Naz Reid. He's at like that $9 million mark, expiring contract next year. I could see Dallas trying to get him.
And if you're hearing some of these names and you're like, man, none of these names are really like making me excited, it's because the Mavericks just need some role play. They need role players. They need some of these guys to come in and do some of the grunt work. Look at all the teams that are still in right now. And it's about the assets too. Like, we'll talk about some bigger names in a little bit that, yeah, they could possibly go all in for, but these are the most likely because I don't think it's going to cost you an arm and a leg. Denver, Bruce Brown, Aaron Gordon, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. Lakers, Rui Hachimura, Jared Vanderbilt, Troy
Wait,
Brown
what
Jr.
are you, whoa. What are you listing right now?
Listen to some of these teams that have these like Miami, Max Strus, Victor Oladipo, Caleb Martin. Like they all these teams that are contending right now all have two or three or four of these guys, right? The Mavericks did two last year when they had Reggie, Dorian Finney-Smith. Like you have multiple guys like this, and so they have to have them. Coming up, let's talk about some ones that it might take a move or two, but the Mavericks could go after them, some wing targets. We'll talk about that coming up. But before we do, let me tell you about eBay Motors. You need to have the right fit for your team. You have to have the right wing. You have to have the right player that fits what type of player you want, as well as the availability. For championship teams, it's all about making sure every player is a perfect fit. It's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can be sure that every part you need fits right the first time around. Just add your ride to My Garage and look for the green check to know that the part will fit or your money back. Because just like in sports, confidence, baby, confidence is the name of the game when you shop at eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. Get the right parts, the right fit, the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items apply. Exclusions apply. All right, Isaac Harris, thanks everybody for hanging out with us on Locked On Mavs, being part of the show. On tomorrow's show, we will do our subtext draft mailbag. Send us your questions on the draft. So click the link in the description to subscribe to our subtext. Send us a question. There's a trial for it too, so you can do that. Let's get into some other targets. One other target that I think is likely that we didn't really mention is Jay Crowder. He's an unrestricted free agent.
I mean, Duke barely played for the Bucks, and they gave up 4 seconds.
Couldn't play for the Bucks. But I mean, these are some of the targets that you're starting to look at. He couldn't play 40 minutes for you, but he could at least come in and do something, bring a veteran, all that kind of stuff. I think that's a name that'll be out there that he's played for the Mavericks before. He was in the Rondo trade. Yep. So we'll figure out what's going on with him this offseason.
I'll give you 4 more names for most likely. Dorian Finney-Smith. Hey, I don't know if y'all have heard of him before.
Have we ever talked about him on this show before?
I mean, yeah, I think it was Mark Stein who said that they were going to probably listen to offers for him this offseason. Love to have Dorian back for the right price. I would add Taylor Horton Tucker to this list. I don't know what his future is in Utah. I think there's an option there for next season to where he can be expiring next year and all of that. I think he'd be an interesting fit in Dallas. And then 2 names that I would be interested in to an extent would be Isaac Okoro in Cleveland. I think if they want to get better on the wing, his shooting struggles, but he could be a defensive guy for Dallas. And I could see, this isn't a lockdown defender, but I could see Philly entertaining like swapping Tobias Harris for a couple of pieces, and it'd be like hey, we'll take would you do Tim Hardaway and Davis Bertans for Tobias Harris?
Tobias Harris, I didn't even have him on my list, to be honest, because I don't think he defends well enough for what the Mavericks want him to do.
But we're talking about wings.
You're right. He's only 1 more year. He's only $39 million next year, so at least it's not a long-term deal. Tim and Davis, yeah, I would do that. I think. Yeah, I think especially since it's only 1 more year.
Yeah. Anyway, let's go to the next category. What you got?
There's a couple more that I think are likely that could fit really well.
I thought you already gave you
I had a couple more. Bruce Brown, player option. I think he's going to get paid. I don't know if the Mavericks have the money for him, but I think he is going to get paid. And I listened to Locked On Nuggets the other day. It doesn't sound like they're going to be able to pay him. They sounded sad, like, oh man, he's playing so well, but I don't think we'll keep him next year.
He's in my next category.
Royce O'Neal has a non-guaranteed. We've talked a lot about how Brooklyn is going to be in that like luxury tax area. And if they want to get out of that and sign Cam Johnson, then Royce O'Neal is one that they'll probably have to get rid of. And so he'll be a guy that I think will target if they could get rid of him without like losing anything or get something back for him. Maybe the Mavericks get in on that. Dante DiVincenzo has a player option as well for the Warriors. They're in a similar situation with the luxury tax and all that, where how can they keep all these guys? They have to sign Clay and Draymond if they're going to do that. they could go win the title this year. And if they do that, they're going to go re-sign those two guys. Like, it's just going to happen. So Dante is maybe the guy that doesn't get brought back because of that player option. And then Grant Williams is what I'm watching. He's a restricted free agent. I don't know what's going on with the Celtics, but again, with the cap implications, that may be one where they don't necessarily bring him back if they decide they have to make some tough decisions.
Is he good? Like, I don't know.
I think he can be good. He's like good at sometimes. But he would play for the Mavericks. I know that. So.
Well, I think he would have played for the Mavs coming off the bench last year. I have Bruce Brown. So our next category is called like I put the cards must align. Like some things, have to happen for this player to be traded or let go. And like the Bruce Brown minutes for Denver in the series against Phoenix have been awesome. He would be, he makes like $6 million. He would be is it an overpay to say I would entertain the MLE for him?
No, what the MLE is like going to be like what, 12 million?
Yeah, like 10, 12.
Yeah, no, I would do that. He's making 6 this year. Yeah, I would do that.
I just really like him a lot. I think he's in the mold of one of my other guys on this list, the Alex Caruso mold.
Yep.
That I think some things would have to happen with Chicago for them to just like kind of dump him somewhere or to trade him off, especially with like the Lonzo stuff looking not good right now.
Yeah, Caruso was on my list for this too. He has 1 year left and then a non-guaranteed. So if they want to get some value out of him or something, I don't think the Mavericks can offer anything small to give to them. Like they're not going to offer a future first. And I went through, could the Mavericks be a team that gets multiple players from a team? If Caruso is going to be involved, it would have to be a multi-team deal to make it all work out for everybody. So I don't think that's going to happen. But I have him. DeAnthony Melton has 1 year left with the Sixers. That's another one. If that's another one that would be awesome. He would play 40 minutes. He can defend. He can hit a three. If the cards align, then he's one that would fit super, super well. Same with Jaden McDaniels for the Timberwolves. They have some decisions to make for sure. He should be one.
They got to pay him though. Like
they got to pay him, but they're also paying 2 centers like $80 million. So
they can't.
I don't know. Does Alex Rodriguez have that much money? Like,
you know how many times he's been divorced?
And we've talked about DeAndre Hunter before too.
He's on my dream category later on.
He's a guy that has a 4-year deal, and Atlanta has to make some decisions with their cap and all that. So I think he may be one that could be out, but yeah, he would be a really good target for the Mavs.
He's one of my top choices that I'm watching as far as realistic, and I would be happy if we got him. But anyway, we can talk more about him in a little bit. Some other names in that category. I have a Norm Powell for a lot of the same reasons for the Clippers thing. If they got to shake some things up, shed some money, I would definitely be open for Norm Powell in Dallas. And then I have Markelle Fultz and Bojan Bogdanovic.
I'd count those guys as guards, but that's okay.
You count Bojan as a guard? In
Detroit? I was thinking, no, Detroit Bojan. I was thinking about Bogdan.
Yeah, I didn't know what to do with Markelle. I put him in there, but I don't know what Detroit's going to. They obviously kept him past the deadline. There's a lot of talk about him going into the deadline, and I would just be interested again if they put him on the market this summer.
Yeah, that'd be a great fit. We're kind of just doing now. We're kind of playing the game. Like, okay, what about this guy? What about this guy? What about this guy? What's the mechanism for the Mavericks to get him after we've talked about the most likely ones that are available? Coming up, let's get into our dream targets. Who are players that we're looking eyes at the sky? Like, okay, these are ones that would fit so well and perfect, but it would take some stuff. The Mavericks would have to put in some legwork to go get them. So we'll talk about that coming up. But before we do, let me tell you about BetterHelp. BetterHelp is so helpful for you and so helpful for anybody to be able to talk to somebody, to be able to talk out a situation or a problem that you don't want to talk to your significant other about, a family member, like somebody's too close to the situation. They'll have some kind of agenda. Talk to somebody that doesn't have an agenda. If you're thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. You work week to week trying to figure out what time is best for you. So fill out a brief questionnaire, get matched with a licensed therapist, and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. That's so huge to be able to switch at any time and not even get charged for it. So find more balance with BetterHelp. It's BetterHelp, BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. All right, Isaac Harris, we are talking about wing targets for the Mavericks. We talked about some realistic ones, talked about some ones that would help the Mavericks. I'm looking at a lot of defensive wings. There's a lot of names out there, and there's a lot of like options for the Mavericks. So I was encouraged by it. Went through and did my whole process where I went through and you said, how many wings do you have? I said 40. You were surprised. He's like, wait, how many do you have?
Like bonus?
Went through like all the wings and tried to figure out, okay, who would be good fits for the Mavericks? I think all 40 of those would be good fits on the Mavericks. And then who's available? Like who could actually help the team and be there? Now let's go beyond that and talk about some dream targets. Who's your first dream target you're looking at?
Well, I still kind of kept like realistic, and I just had
fairly realistic.
Yeah, I just had 3 names on there. I had the 2 Toronto guys, Pascal Siakam, OG Anunoby, and then I put DeAndre Hunter on there. Those 3 would be my dream, like realistic ones this summer. There's obviously bigger names out there. Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, like those are dream targets. Jimmy Butler, that would be awesome. If you have those in Dallas, I just don't see any world that they're getting moved. So yeah, that's those 3 names. I think those 3 names will be talked about a lot this summer. And if Dallas came away from the summer with one of those 3, I'd be pretty happy.
Yeah, I went a little bit loftier dream when I talked about dream.
Kevin Durant.
Mikal Bridges, dream candidate. You get the number 2 pick, the number 3 pick, something like that. Like then you are maybe in the category where you could start discussing that conversation. OG Anunoby is one that you mentioned. Aaron Gordon, you look at what Aaron Gordon's doing right now for Denver, and he's been a target we've been looking at for a long time. Like, hey, he would fit so well, be kind of a small ball 5, but also a big wing, and also guy that can handle the ball a little bit. Like, he does all the little things that you need next to a Jokic or a Luka. Derek White is one that I have. Can't imagine the Celtics getting rid of him at this point. He's got a good contract for a couple more years, but would just be such a great fit next to Luka and Kyrie.
You said I couldn't say Markelle Fultz, but you're going to say Derek White.
Yeah, I did. I went there.
All right, keep going.
We also said Alex Caruso, though.
All right, that's true, yeah.
But I also went with defensive guys. So like you bringing up
Markel's good defensive guy.
I'll have to ask Locked On Magic.
Can I give a hottish take? Okay. I think it's probably not even that hottish, but I think if Boston loses a Philly, I think they trade Marcus Smart over Derek White.
Wow. And
I would expect Dallas to be on the receiving end of that phone call.
That would be amazing. Yeah, see that's a dream target right there.
Well, I actually didn't put him as a dream. I had a whole other categories like, wow, didn't think he would be traded. And that's what I had Marcus Smart in that.
Lou Dort is another dream target I have on my list.
Oh, yeah. They ain't trading him, though. He's great.
So Herb Jones, also a dream target. Again, these are dream targets.
That's true.
Of all these guys, which one stands out to you the most is like, okay, most likely. We've talked about all these different names. Which ones are you looking at saying, okay, I could see the Mavericks getting this guy like at the offseason's ending. We're starting training camp. This player's on the roster.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's why I keep on bringing up DeAndre Hunter, because I think Atlanta's going to make some big time moves. Yeah. I think they're going to change up the roster, new front office. Quinn Snyder, year 2, he just came in like mid or like 75% of the year. I mean, Trae Young could be moved this offseason, but if they don't trade Trae Young, they got to make some other bigger moves. And that's where the DeAndre Hunter one comes into play. Guy's 6'8", who can shoot like him, defend like him, and he's under contract for $20 million moving forward for 4 more years, I think. And that's why I'm like looking at him saying, all right, he's not good enough that you have to give up the 4th overall pick if you move up in the lottery, but there's scenarios and like different iterations of trades with Atlanta that I would be saying, all right, like I could understand that. Like if they called up Atlanta and said, all right, we have the 10th overall pick. You're trying to get off I saw a rumor about John Collins for Ben Simmons swap, and I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. Like,
wow.
Like John Collins' value is that low. If they're trying to get off John Collins' contract,
multiple year.
Yeah, and like if you're Dallas, do you call up and say Tim Hardaway, Reggie Bullock, Bertans, and 10 for DeAndre Hunter and John Collins? And for Atlanta, you're getting the 10th overall pick. You get basically 2 expiring contracts in Reggie Bullock, Davis Bertans. You get Tim in that. You already have Bogdan, but who cares? And so, like, I would be interested in that if I was Dallas. DeAndre Hunter, John Collins, even though they're like John Collins isn't a perfect fit and all of that. Like, I have all my issues with John Collins, basketball player, but I don't know. It's that type. I think DeAndre Hunter is OG is like the dream of realistic guys, but man, you almost have to land in that top 4. I think if you're Dallas to have a shot, because I think you're going to have it. I mean, if they were turning down 3 first-round picks, for OG at the deadline, why is that value going to go down this summer? And Dallas just doesn't have the assets, I think, to outbid some other teams. Kind of the same for Pascal Siakam.
Yeah, absolutely. And so these guys are a little bit more realistic. I'm looking at some free agents. Did we mention Harrison Barnes today?
Not today, no.
We mentioned him the other day. I don't think he'd come back to Dallas. I know that it's a new coach, new front office. I think that what happened with him would, if it was me, would leave a bad taste in my mouth, and he would not want to come back. And who knows if he liked playing with Luka or not. The Mavericks didn't like him playing with Luka, and so they made that decision all the way back, after the Porzingis trade. So that's one that would seem likely because he's an unrestricted free agent. He would be a good fit and all that. And maybe they can let bygones be bygones, and he would be a professional, come back, and I think he would do a great job. But that's one to look at. I don't think that it's likely though, because of the history.
Yeah. I got a couple other names we haven't talked about too much right now. I would watch Pat Williams in Chicago, especially with the 10th overall pick. Do they want to pay him, moving forward? He's still super young. Is there a multiple, players involved type of deal to where you could get Pat Williams and Alex Caruso back in a deal to where, the 10th pick and, some other pieces from Dallas? Like, that would be an awesome move. He's in my list of, wow, didn't think he would be traded. Marcus Smart. I kind of low-key put Keldon Johnson in there, even though Dallas and Spurs are probably not going to make a trade. But I always watch the teams the really sucky teams who have who are not going to be good for a while, but they have a young player under contract for a long time at like a bigger number, but he's not a star. And that's where like the Keldon Johnson one comes into play, to where he's not an SGA type to where he's untouchable. Like, he's like that good, but he's also due like $20 million for the next 4 years, to where if somebody came in and like gave a decent trade package to the Spurs, I could see them like entertaining it. And I think Keldon Johnson would be great in Dallas. And my last under the radar one, you don't like Keldon Johnson?
No, I was looking through a Mavs Bulls scenario where it's Caruso and Patrick Williams. Would you do Tim Hardaway and Josh Green for Alex Caruso and Patrick Williams? I don't even know. Do you have to put a first?
Yeah, you gotta put the 10th pick in that.
Okay, so a 10th pick, Josh Green, Tim Hardaway, Alex Caruso, and Patrick Williams.
I would drive to Chicago and get down to my underwear and jump into the river. Here's one that's kind of under the radar. Jonathan Kuminga.
I had him on a list.
Get him in Dallas. I would love it.
That athleticism they need really badly too, and he's not being utilized with the Warriors. You can hear Cyrus Satz is on Locked On Warriors bemoan that all the time.
Listen to Cyrus. Jordan Poole.
No, I'm out. Done.
Yeah,
nope.
I know you're done.
We got Jordan Poole at home, and with better decision making already, and his name is Jaden Hardy.
Rui.
I had Rui on the list. He's a little bit better defender than I even thought. So maybe he should be on the list. I think he'll get paid a little. I think he'll get paid.
Would you give the full MLE to him?
No, because I think it has to be a lockdown defender if you're doing the full.
I still believe in Rui, man. I still got my property on the island. It's looking good right now. But
I was gonna say it's going up in value, but he's got to be a lockdown defender for me.
My last name for you, Brad Beal.
In what way?
He's a wing.
Yeah, but what's the mechanism where they acquire him?
I mean, I don't want the contract. He's kind of like Rudy Gobert, but I'm just saying, if we're talking about names who could be moved in the offseason, a wing, and he's still pretty good.
He could be moved.
Would it shock you if it's like Dallas Mavericks are trading for Brad Beal?
Yes, it would.
Okay.
I mean,
Is it bad that seems like a Cuban move though?
No, because it does. I mean,
Dude, we got
Tim Hardaway, Reggie Bullock, Davis Bertans, and the 10th pick for Bradley Beal. Then you have Luka, Kyrie, and Bradley Beal, and that
making $130 million combined.
Yeah, it would literally be. Well, it depends on what Kyrie gets, but yeah, a whole salary cap on 3.
Kyrie is going to get at least like 45 a year. It's just a matter of how many years, probably.
True.
So either way, you're looking at Luka and Kyrie making 80 to 85.
No, I'm out on the Bradley Beal thing because I've said this multiple times. Can't be a third like $40-50 million player. It's got to be
unless he's like a top 15 player, right?
Unless it's like Anthony Davis comes in and then like, okay, then you fix like 5 issues that you have on your team. And then, yeah, it makes sense. But there's really not many other players that I could even think of
that you would agree to.
Embiid. Like,
hey, shout out to Embiid.
Max money.
It was a huge moment. Just like the documentary is going to be great. He hears that he won MVP. The knee is healed. He said, I'm back, baby.
Magic. On tomorrow's show, a subtext draft mailbag. Send us all your questions about the draft. 10th pick, top 4, whatever you want. Whatever questions, trades with the draft pick, all kinds of stuff. Let us know and subscribe to our subtext. Click the link in the description below and then send us those questions for tomorrow's show. Guys, thanks so much for listening to Locked On Mavs.
Peace out.
Boom.